Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the podcast. Today we are talking all about fitness, and we have a very special guest in Kirsty McLeod. Now, Kirsty McLeod is an online fitness coach, a marathon runner, and she recently completed a half Ironman. And from when we post this video, she has a full Ironman to run. In this podcast, we cover everything from diet to training to, most importantly, in my opinion, to mental health.
I opened up recently about struggling with anorexia nervosa when I was 11 when I developed it. I think for so long I punished my body in the wrong ways. I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do because I was so ill, and it was a mental illness and it wasn't a choice.
The blood rushes away from your stomach, right? Am I right in saying that? And as a result, your stomach is not great.
Oh, it's a horrible feeling. I then saw my mum, so I ran over to my mum in bare feet, and she was like, right, take my shoes. So she threw her shoes to me. My feet were destroyed.
Do you agree with the keto diet?
I've heard it's been...
Before we start this podcast, if you can hit that like button, subscribe button, 5-star button, whatever it is, wherever you are, I'd really appreciate it. Honestly, every little helps. And the more subscribers we get, likes and traction we can get on the podcast, the more incredible guests like Kirsty we can get on. Thank you. This is the Into the Mind podcast, and my name is Harrison Brown. If you're watching or listening, I hope this helps. How have you found social media for documenting everything and tracking everything? And
it's
also clienteling.
Good. Yeah, for clientele it's good. I've actually stopped my in-person personal training business and then have started doing some more social media jobs, which has been really interesting, how you can make that a career essentially. And also it's really fascinating how it all works behind the scenes. So yeah.
What kind of jobs come in through social media? Is it branded gigs?
Branded stuff. So a lot of, is it UGC videos? Don't know if you've ever heard of them. So videos that go off to companies and they use it for their platforms, and then brands will come to me and then pay me to post say stories or videos about them, which has been quite cool.
And how do you find that? I always find that on Instagram, if I get brands reaching out, that sometimes they don't really mesh. I struggle to promote a product that I wouldn't use myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's important to only promote products that you do use to be authentic, I think, to you and your audience. And I think I would never really do anything that's
fake,
or doesn't align with what I believe in.
So did you find that you so you use the gifts that you get kind of thing?
Oh yeah.
And you believe in them?
Some of them.
Cool.
So you can be gifted things, and then a lot of the stuff that I get gifted, I won't post about.
Okay.
Or I won't really use, or I'll pass on to somebody else. But the stuff that I do post is stuff that I will use and have used or really enjoyed.
Yeah. It's smart. There's the guy, do you know, you've probably seen it. Did you watch, is it 14 Peaks?
Oh.
Yeah. Did you watch 14 Peaks?
Oh, what was that again? Remind me. It rings a bell.
It was the guy, he was called Nims, and he's the guy that did the 14 Peaks, the tallest mountains in the world.
Wow.
All within 6 months. And it's never been done before. And everyone was like, it's totally impossible. He remortgaged his house. He just did all this wild shit to climb the 14 Peaks, essentially really fast. There's a Netflix documentary. It's amazing, right?
Wow, I'm going to watch it.
But
I don't think I've seen it.
There was a really interesting form of marketing that Bremont did, who's they're like a watch brand. And they essentially, while he was coming up, they gave him a bunch of free shit, but they didn't pay him. So they gave him a Bremont watch, they gave him a Bremont hat, all this kind of stuff. And then what happened was, because he was doing this 14 Peaks challenge and he was filming it all, and eventually it went on to Netflix, they got a huge amount of free promotion from the challenge.
That's incredible.
So what I'm saying is, I would make the people pay. They're giving you the stuff.
Yeah,
And do they all do it free?
Not all for free, no. So some things are just gifted, and some brands don't have a budget. So that's a big thing. If they do have a budget, they will pay. But if they don't, then they don't, and then it's just free gifted stuff. So I'll maybe put up a story. But if they do have a budget, then definitely payment is needed. Yeah.
Is there any brands that you want to work with in particular?
I'd love to work with Adidas. I don't know why. I run in Adidas shoes. They're my favorite shoes. So I feel like I'd love to maybe a sports brand or something like that one day. Yeah.
And is there any gym gear that you'd kind of recommend? I know that I'm terrible for just wearing trackies and shoes, and then there's people that say to me that you need to change your shoes every 3 months because the soles all break.
Yeah, especially if you're running.
Is that true?
It's so important. Yeah,
right.
So your shoes only have a certain set mileage in them, well, not set mileage, but depending on how much you wear them and how much you use them, especially for your foot health and your bones and your ligaments and your joints, is so important, especially if you are running miles on them.
Why is that? Is it like, does your feet kind of like, I remember having an old pair of like a suede kind of shoes. This is really weird, but after a while they kind of had like a slice out the bottom where I'd been walking on them. Yeah. So it was kind of pivoting my feet inward a little bit.
Yeah, so it's just like where your foot kind of plants. So the impact of walking or running, it's just going to wear away the bottom. So you need to have support on them.
Right. And is there any kind of shoes that you'd recommend?
So I like running in Adidas.
Right. Okay. Sponsorship deal right here.
Fingers crossed. Maybe one day. I also wear Brooks. Brooks actually sent me a pair of their shoes, which was really kind. So I do like Brooks shoes. They're really comfortable, really good for your feet. I think it just depends. I do recommend going to a run shop and getting fitted for shoes. That's like the number one thing I say to everybody is go to a run shop, get your gait checked, because everybody runs slightly differently. Everybody walks slightly differently. Some people pronate more, some people don't. Any issues that you have going on, run experts will know best. I'm not a run expert. So yeah, I would definitely say.
You're doing an Ironman. I think you're an expert of multiple fields.
Beginner expert maybe.
Do you have when people come to you for advice or for kind of PTing or kind of exercise advice, what is the kind of 3 main points that you would tell them, do you think, off the bat? If I was coming to you and saying, you know, I want to lose a little bit of weight, what are the 3 things that you'd tell me?
I would say have a look at what you're doing now and seeing what small steps that you can do to change that. And I think a lot of people look at the big picture. And I think on social media, it's really hard because you see people who are super, super fit and you see people who are running marathons, ultras, Ironmans, etc. And you think, oh my gosh, I should be able to do that all. Like I should be able to. But for the average person, that's not the case. So I think if you like the biggest tip I can give is change something that what you're doing every day, change it as something small. And over time, that small change will be a bigger change. Yeah. So don't like go in thinking I need to start running 10K every single day. I need to go to the gym. I need to do triple days, double days. Just start small, whether that's like, you know, cut out something from your diet that's unhealthy, or whether that's, you know, walking 2,000 more steps than what you did yesterday. It doesn't need to be 10,000 because 10,000 is just a random number. Yeah. It can just be like 1,000 more from yesterday or 2,000 more. And then just that will add up over time. And I think that's really important.
And when it comes, there's 2 important topics there. I suppose social media is I hate social media. It's weird because I kind of live in it.
I say that a lot. Yeah. To everybody, I'm like, oh, I hate it.
I hate it. And it's like, you like, I'll post a video on YouTube in the Chisholm Hunter channel. And it will be like, YouTube have introduced this thing weirdly. I don't know why they've done it because it just is not a good thing to have. But it essentially ranks your videos 1 to 10. Right. So within the last 10 videos you've posted, where is your video that you just posted ranking? Okay. So it just makes everyone feel like shit when they get a number 10. Yeah. But I feel like social media is because everyone's comparing themselves to others, it's a really toxic place.
I found it's getting more and more toxic as well.
Yeah. I think that it's in like around, especially younger girls. Like, how do you think that has impacted younger girls in terms of health? Like, I think it's really scary.
So scary. I think, again, it's like that thing you see everybody doing everything. And especially I think it's different in different parts of the internet that you go down. Because I feel like there's different groups. Like there's a fitness group. Yeah. And then there's a more like adventure side that you're probably on. And then there's, you know, fashion. And I think you see, for instance, on the fitness industry, you see everybody doing everything. Or like these challenges, it's just becoming more and more and more and more. And it just takes away from maybe what you're doing and makes you feel bad. Because I know like sometimes I get up on a Sunday and I'll see somebody and they've been out at 7 a.m. and they've done a half marathon. And you're like, I'm still in my pajamas and it's 12 o'clock. Like I feel like it's almost like unattainable standards. And I think for girls growing up, seeing unattainable standards they might be pushing their bodies to do something that isn't healthy for them, or you know, if they see an influencer that's maybe a different body shape, they might be changing their diet to, you know, try and change their bodies. And I think as social media is growing, how good it is that people are becoming more creative and, you know, expressing what they love. I think younger generation, it scares me because I would hate to be my younger self in social media now, seeing all of this, because I know how influenced I would be from it.
Yeah. I think most people, especially you kind of get yourself into like a mirrored room on especially like TikTok and Instagram Reels. Like the content that you consume is just regurgitated to you.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have like a certain belief, that belief is going to be like set in stone by your social media algorithm. And that's the scary bit when it comes to, I feel like, younger people, is that they'll like, I mean, when I was like 18, 19, I had no idea like what I was talking about or why I was talking about it.
No.
And I didn't have like, my beliefs were so easily influenced.
Yeah, because you're learning and you're experiencing.
Exactly. And I suppose the difference with your social media then that I've noticed is that you kind of document like days in the life instead. How have you found that?
I find that, again, it's kind of fake. Like, as much as like I've tried to show as honest as I can be, and I think I show my days in life, and then I do kind of other videos that are maybe a bit more about mental health and like how I'm feeling at certain points, showing the days in the life. I think it can be motivating to get people up and like to show what you're doing and to show like how you're training and what you're doing, but a lot of the time, like, it is stop and start, and it isn't real. And I think coming from somebody who does film themselves and posts about it, I can tell you, like, everybody, that it's not what it seems. Like, some days, like, I'll throw in clips from like another day because I don't have a bit of content I haven't filmed. And like, as bad as I feel saying that, and as guilty as I feel saying that, because maybe it's not authentic, but you kind of know that. I think it's easy for me to know that it's fake everywhere else, but for others, maybe it's not. So like, I try to remind people as much as I can that like social media is just, it is what you see, and it's what people want you to see as well. So like, I wouldn't really post a video of me like not looking my best or like not feeling that great, because I wouldn't feel great about it. So yeah, I think it's just important to remind yourself and younger generations coming up that it is what the camera sees, and it's not true life.
Yeah, it's not real. I think, do you think in a way, and this is something that I fell into as well, do you think in a way switching on the camera and posting to social media motivates you as well as it motivates other people? Because you kind of feel like people are watching you. Like, I remember when I was younger, I'd say, like, maybe this is 4 years ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go up a mountain at 2 a.m. to do some photography. Yeah. And I knew that if I posted that to my story,
you would do it.
I was going to do it.
I feel like that's why I do it. I feel like that's honestly why I film myself saying that I'm going to do things. Or like, if I'm having a really bad day training, or I just really can't be bothered, I'll put on my story, I'll say, oh, I've got this to do. And I know that I've got to do it because I know that I've got to keep myself accountable. So I feel like, for me, filming, it's me almost getting excited to train and like building myself up to train, as opposed to, maybe it is a selfish thing. Maybe I'm doing it for myself more than anything else. So.
Well, it's not a bad thing. It's just finding out what, I suppose, motivates you. See, when I edit up in that little room there. It's like a little cubby hole. And and whenever I'm like procrastinating, which everyone does, I will put on a time lapse on my phone and just film myself. I'll delete it after. But I know that I'm being recorded, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can put this in my story. And then all of a sudden I've done 3 hours of work. Because a lot of the time, the hardest bit is like getting off the starting block, if that makes sense. Talk to me about, so you kind of trained up. Did I hear this right, that you did a half Ironman and then the medal was lost? Did I hear something about this?
No, but I did a half Ironman a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't have my shoes. So I didn't have my transition 2 bag. So I turned up to transition 2, my bag wasn't there. So
wait, what's transition 2?
So you have your swim, your bike, and your run in a triathlon.
Yeah.
And then from the swim, I might be getting this wrong. If this is wrong, hopefully it's right. From the swim to the bike is transition 1.
Yes.
And then from the bike to the run is transition 2. And you have bags. So you have bags that have all of your needs in it. So for transition 2, you have your shoes, you have your gels, and anything that you need on the run. Whether it was armbands or whatever. So I turned up to transition 2 and my shoes weren't there and my bag wasn't there. So I was in my cleats and I was getting ready. I was like, what do I do?
Shoes,
So I got the security over and I was like, hi, my bag's not here. And he was like, right, we're going to go look for it. So they had a look. There may be 3 security guards looking for it. In the meantime, I was like, right, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I then saw my mum. So I ran over to my mum in bare feet. And she was like, right, take my shoes. So she threw her shoes to me. And got the shoes. She has insoles that were made for her in them. So I was like, right, if I run in these, I'm going to ruin my feet. So I took the insoles out. So the shoes were 2 sizes too big and didn't have any insoles in them. And she threw me her socks as well because I didn't have socks. And they were like the thinnest, old, like that white old pair of ankle socks in the back of your drawer. So I put them on, and then I was like, right, I'm just gonna go. A guy gave me one of his gels, which was so kind. And then I went and my feet were destroyed. It's so bad. So I'm actually dealing with a bit of an injury right now, which is not good.
Huge blisters, I'm guessing. Just
actually no blisters, but just a bit of a strain in my tendon. So yeah. But then I messaged Ironman to see what they could do about it and if there was like any compensation that I could get because my bag wasn't there. They did find my bag in the end. It was racked outside of the tent. So I don't know if somebody maybe picked up my bag by mistake, chucked it away, and I just got really, really unlucky. But yeah, so I emailed Ironman and they haven't really got back to me. They didn't really say much. It wasn't much help. So yeah, but then they did disqualify me, which wasn't great because one of the rules, like one of the biggest rules in Ironman competitions is you can't have help from outsiders. So because I took my mum's shoes and because I owned up to taking my mum's shoes, they didn't even notice I did it. But because I owned up to it, I got disqualified.
That is so
How bad is that? But I did finish and I've got the medal. So there we go.
Okay, so you got to, that is so unfair. I'm sure there'd be like circumstances out with like your own. Someone's lost a bag, they need some help or whatever it is.
And it's such a big company, you'd think that they would be able to do something, but
you
know, it was the hand I was dealt that day and like I finished it regardless. And at that moment, my only thought was like, how can I wasn't angry, I didn't get upset. I was just like, how can I get through? How can I run and not be in pain or to finish?
And do you still, because you're going to do another one, right?
Yeah.
And is it a full one this time?
Full one, yeah.
Okay, so I suppose one question, like, whenever I speak to Marcus was one, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. So like Marcus Kennedy, who's been in the podcast, brilliant guy, brilliant PT, brilliant coach. He has, whenever I speak to successful, like, or very motivated people, within their past, there has been some form of like, Marcus, for an example, his dad left when he was very young. He didn't speak to his dad.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
So he felt, he did say this in the podcast, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but he felt a huge sense of responsibility for his family. And I think that was part of what really motivated him to succeed.
Yeah.
You look at some successful entrepreneurs, they started with extremely little. So they always had a little bit of a chip in their shoulder to like go the extra mile.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question for you is like, what is the underlying motivation here? Because doing an Ironman or even doing a half Ironman is an unbelievable achievement. So what's the motivation?
Yeah, so I've actually spoken about this on my Instagram before. I opened up recently about struggling with anorexia nervosa when I was, I would say I was 11 when I developed it. And then I was probably about fully recovered when I was 22, I'd say. I think for so long I punished my body in like the wrong ways. And from moving about growing up, I definitely lacked a sense of control in my life because I was moved left, right and center. Every 2 years we would move country. So I lacked a sense of control. So I definitely used food to control that when I was younger. And then for so long, and I've always played sports growing up, and I've always been so sporty and so active. And then for so long, from being so cruel to my body and dealing with an eating disorder, I couldn't play the sports I wanted to play, or I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do because I was so ill, and it was a mental illness, and it wasn't a choice. So I think because for so long I wasn't able to do it, I think now I'm like, I just want to, I guess like prove to myself that I can and show my body or show myself more so than anybody else how strong I am and how capable I am and how far I've come or like how much I've got through to get to the point that I'm at right now. So yeah.
That's pretty inspiring, I think. And I think that will inspire it inspires a lot of other people that are watching you and that are struggling with the same disorder. I think from looking in from the outside, that specific disorder seems to be a huge problem. I think partially it's maybe linked to social media.
I think it can be, for sure. I think it doesn't help. I think definitely there's definitely different theories of whether it comes from like genetics or if it's the way that you're brought up. I think me and my family always talk that it's like having the perfect storm So for me, it was like the traveling every 2 years, and then probably need the perfectionism that I have in me, my traits that I have, and who I am as a person have all just kind of like led to that perfect storm of having the eating disorder. And then at the time when I was 11, we moved to Australia. My brother went off to boarding school. We weren't particularly happy as a family. I wasn't particularly happy moving again. I think leaving friends, making friends, I was just at that point was really, really struggling. And at that age, I didn't even know what I was doing. But something that made me feel good for a short period was restricting my food. So I had that perfect storm of developing an eating disorder at that age. And I think it's unfortunate that it developed when I was so young, because it definitely, at that point, you're so vulnerable. And at that age, you take in so much. And a lot of what's so deeply ingrained is learned at that age. That I think it makes it harder to recover. But I think social media can definitely play a part in it, in like almost aggravating it. But I think, and maybe for some people it does stem through social media, maybe nowadays, but more so from when I was 11 and there wasn't really any social media. But I think it's more so about personality traits and I guess like the situation that you're in.
So is it kind of like, do you think it was maybe sort of perfectionism and maybe control as well? So you being in control of, because you were moving around so much as a kid, that was the thing that you could be in control of. I think there's also there's like a genuine scientific thing that when you fast, you do feel good. Like this morning, when I eat, especially before a podcast or before I film, I can see myself on camera being like a little bit sluggish, like a little bit just like I can't get my words out. So like, for example, this morning I actually didn't eat. I had like a banana or something like that, but I didn't eat a full meal. So is there something that goes on in your brain that actually like you do feel better?
I think so. Like, I think I wouldn't say definitely
Not
always eat.
Yeah,
eating always makes you feel better. But I think there is like almost like this dopamine rush that you would get. And I think it's just your neural pathways. And my mum and my family were so amazing throughout my recovery. And I'm so forever grateful for them, because we kind of broke it down. And instead of thinking of, oh, it's me, I'm the problem, it was more like your mental pathways right now, your neurons aren't firing right. So we need to get you to fire them right.
Yeah.
So probably when I was ill, that when I wasn't eating, my neural pathways were saying, yeah, this feels good. Like, of course it feels good, because that's what I was like believing at the time. But when you do fix your neural pathways and like you do get better, you realize how much food does like make you happier. But there is definitely this sense of like elation almost from not eating that I would used to get.
Yeah. And what kind of, if anyone's listening to this that is suffering from some form of anorexia, what would be your kind of advice to them?
To speak to people and educate people around you. I think there's a lack of education from most people around anorexia nervosa and all eating disorders, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, RFID. There's so many eating disorders out there. I think educating yourself on them, and if you know somebody that's struggling with an eating disorder, never make them feel like it's their problem. And no, it's not them, it's the eating disorder. So that was something that my mum and dad did, that when they were speaking to me, they would be speaking to the eating disorder, and like they would get angry at the eating disorder, not at me, but at the eating disorder, because it wasn't me, it was something else in me. And I was ill. Like, it is a mental illness, and understand that if you are going through it, it's not you, it's your brain, and it's those pathways that aren't firing right, and it's something that is curable, and you're not like this forever, and you will get better. And I think, education is the biggest thing to help.
Absolutely. And then you had this moment that of kind of realization, and then all of a sudden it was taking back control in a kind of way. To talk me through that, the kind of was it 22 that started happening?
I think it was about 22. I got really muddled, but it was after lockdown, just when things started to open up again. I remember just thinking to myself, oh my God, like, I think all the pubs and everything was opening again. All my friends were going out, and I was being invited out to places. And I remember just thinking, like, I can't go out. Like, I can't. And then I thought to myself, like, I'm never going to find a boyfriend. I'm never going to have friends. I'm never going to be able to do what I want to do in life if I continue this way. So I just thought, can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I just thought, fuck it. Like, I might as well, like, it's either now or, like, I'm going to be stuck like this forever. And it was really like a now or never moment. And it was really to the point where if I didn't get better, I was going to die. So if I didn't, I just knew, like, something had to change. And one of my favorite quotes is, and I think from that moment, it was, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So, like, if I just kept going like that, I was going to be like that on my deathbed pretty soon. So I had to basically do something, and that was that moment.
And so you reach this pivotal moment, and then all of a sudden an Ironman comes into the
a few years later.
So what, I suppose what was the steps to getting there? So you start that road to recovery, which is incredible. You look great.
Thanks.
But what was the road to get to the Ironman? Because I mean, there's quite a few steps to take.
There was a lot of steps. Yeah. So once I started recovery, I went anti-gym, anti-exercise, and I was like, I hate the gym, I hate working out, like, I'm not doing that to my body anymore. And then I think I was still obviously quite ill at that point, so I got myself better, got myself to full health, fully weight restored, super healthy. And then I think once my healthy brain kind of kicked back in, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I want to play sports again. I want to go to the gym. No, like, this is actually the best thing for me. Or I want to play tennis again with my mum. Or so I started going to the gym again. I then took fitness classes, and I was already a personal trainer. So I started doing my personal training again. And then last year I did a marathon, and I've always been into running. So I started cross country when I was about 14. So I've always been doing a bit of running here and there. And during lockdown, I did quite a bit of running in an unhealthy way. So I wanted to start running again in a healthy way. So I did a marathon last year, and it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it, but I almost found it, I think, a bit boring, the training. I think
running for miles.
Yeah, I just found it a bit boring, and I was like, it's a challenge, obviously, and it was really hard. The marathon was great. I was super happy with my time, but I just kind of wanted something that was, I don't know, a bit harder, I guess, or a bit more like, almost like had an itch that I wanted to scratch a bit more. So I met a friend who does triathlons, and I used to have a swimming background. I used to swim competitively up until I was about maybe 12, 13, 14. And I also took spin classes for 5 years. So I kind of already had quite a good base fitness. So I was like, right, Ironman it is.
Oh yeah, fuck it. Let's
yeah.
do it.
She did Ironman competition. So she was like, why don't you do one next year? And I was like, sure, let's do it. Why not? So yeah.
And so you get this kind of vision of the Ironman. You've obviously got a very good level of base fitness as it is. What are the kind of changes that you made? Firstly, to your diet, because I imagine when you're doing an Ironman, you're probably eating everything.
Yeah. Everything and anything.
So what's the diet? So for a marathon and an Ironman, how does the diet kind of like differ? And then is there a set, like, do you? I've always wondered, do you eat like 4 or 5 meals a day because you're burning so many calories? Like, how does that work?
So the difference between marathon and Ironman isn't much different, I wouldn't say. Probably just maybe a bit more food. Yeah. But full focus on carbs, basic carbs, all day, every day, eating as much carbs as possible, basically, which has also been a really healthy mind shift to kind of get away from that diet culture of carbs are bad that you're probably brought up with nowadays. But yeah, just a lot of food. And meal-wise, I feel like my meals are very weird times. Like, I'll get up, I'm starving, and I'll just eat. I kind of just eat when I'm hungry, and then just kind of stop when I'm full. And I think it's got
a healthy way to do it.
Yeah, and I think I've worked so hard to get to that point, whereas I used to be so like regimented when I was ill. And I think almost the marathon training and the Ironman training has really, like, I guess, like, ingrained recovery into me, in that you need food to fuel yourself, you need food to enjoy your life, to socialize, but also, like, you need it to get you through your training. So if you don't, you're not going to be able to train today, because if you don't eat, you're not training. So honestly, my meals are just mainly just a lot of carbs, and probably I want to say like every 2 to 3 hours a day, like constantly eating, constantly.
Is there like a certain amount of, like, everyone's counting the kind of what do you call them? Annabelle, what's the word for
macros?
Them? Macros.
Yeah.
The macros. Everyone's counting their kind of macros and all that kind of stuff. Is there like a certain amount of macros you'd say to get?
It's obviously dependent on person to person. So like my body will need something completely different to my friend Chloe's body, or my body will need something completely different to your body, because everybody's bodies are just so different and people require a different amount of food. And it's also dependent on what you have like days prior. So like you might be hungrier one day because you've maybe not eaten as much the other day. So I think as for macros, I think I don't count calories, don't count anything.
Yeah.
No. But I just kind of make sure to eat enough carbs. And I feel like I've got to a point now where I can tell if I'm lacking in carbs a bit, or I can tell if I'm like, if I've not eaten enough one day or the day before, and I'm like, right, Kirsty, you need to eat extra today, because again, you're not going to be able to train if you don't.
Yeah.
So I think if you are doing any endurance event, never, ever cut carbs, because it's your body's main source of fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm
it's really
guessing
your energy.
That's different. Do you do any weights?
I do a wee bit.
A wee bit.
Not as much as I used to, but I do. I try to weight train once or twice a week.
Yeah. I'm guessing weight training is different though, because like when I used to go to the gym, so I got rejected from uni and then went to college for like 2 months before I dropped out. But I did the same course, like a kind of PT course. And obviously when all the boys were in the gym together, we're all like, yeah, let's eat cans of tuna and like, let's get really big.
Pints of milk.
Yeah, exactly. Protein shakes. So I'm guessing there's like a different method to when you would, if you were coaching someone that wanted to be a weight lifter and get chunky, like muscly, it'd be different to obviously what a marathon runner would want. What would your kind of advice be in the more weightlifting category in terms of eating?
Probably focus your carbs around when you're training and have maybe more of a focus on your protein intake, just to help your muscles recover. Obviously protein's so important regardless, and you need enough whether you're doing endurance sports or whether you're weight training. But I would say that maybe a bit more focus on protein and using your carbs around your training if you are weight training. That's what I would say.
What are your thoughts? We've had a gentleman called Ali Houston on the podcast, I think twice actually now. And he's a keto, I think he's gone to Oxford. He's a super intelligent guy. And he's a keto and paleo expert. Right. And he kind of preaches about the keto diet and how it kind of can really save people from some mental health issues. So the way that he described it is that your body can either work on ketones or it can work for burning carbs for energy. When it burns on ketones, they react slightly different with your brain. I'm kind of putting quotation marks on this because I'm probably summing up. But some people that go on a keto diet all of a sudden feel a lot a lot better within their mental health. Do you agree with the keto diet, or what are your kind of thoughts on it?
I think the keto diet, I might be completely wrong, but I think I've heard it's been good for people with epilepsy, I want to say.
Yeah, you're right.
But I don't know enough about it to comment on an everyday person.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is carbs are our main source of fuel. So you need it, whether you're speaking, whether you're, you need carbs regardless, whether you're doing high exercise or not. I wouldn't really be able to comment on the keto diet. I don't really believe in it myself. I don't think it's something that people should try, because I think it can lead down that disordered eating way.
Risk.
Not for everybody, but for some people it could do. And I just think, life's too short not to eat carbs, to be honest.
They're too good. I had a
they're
pizza
too
last
good.
night.
Yeah. Like I have like pizza often, and pasta so much. So like, I just think there's just more to life than restricting yourself in any way. And I just think like socially, to go out with friends, like imagine everybody's going for pizza and you're just there like,
I can't eat that.
I can't eat that. Like I just think life's far too short, and I think there's just more to life than restricting yourself. Yeah. So yeah, that's my view on it.
Chisholm Hunter are the sponsors of the Into the Mind podcast, and without Chisholm Hunter, I would not be sitting here today. So if you're looking for your next luxury watch or luxury diamond from a family-owned retailer that's been going for over 165 years, then head to chisholmhunter.co.uk. That is chisholmhunter.co.uk. And while you're on the Chisholm Hunter website, use the discount code CHSUB, that is CHSUB, for an exclusive 10% off. This is my thanks to you. It's interesting what you were saying about so you've had this recovery period and you've kind of switched your So you had control over the food you were eating, obviously, and that's what led to the disorder. But I feel like you've kind of switched the control aspect to your training regime to have a positive spin. Do you think, speaking purely from, I'm a bit of a control freak.
Yeah.
Photographers and videographers normally are.
Yeah.
So I like to know everything, and I like to have everything regimented.
So are athletes usually.
Yeah. But do you think that that's what you've done? You've kind of switched the control aspect of your diet. You're still controlling your diet to an extent, but to your gym program, essentially.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I think it's a healthier way to do it, for sure. I think definitely it's probably I feel like it is quite a common thing that people who struggle with eating disorders do. It kind of comes into like maybe exercise or I think it's just important. The one thing that I have been quite strict with myself is that like I know when to take days off.
Yeah.
And it's not like I need to train. It's more of like an enjoyment thing. And I think at one point training for me was like a need to control. Whereas I think it's actually more of an enjoyment thing now. Possibly it is still controlling aspects of like my life that make me feel out of control, and it is like my way of feeling in control. But I know for me now that exercise is more important for my, I guess, like my happiness, as opposed to feeling like, oh yeah, I've got to do this today. But also like if I don't exercise, do you know what, like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And like if I don't get my training in today, do you know what, like I don't feel bad about it. Yeah. And I think making sure that I have that it's okay if I don't train, but if I can, it's great mindset towards it, as opposed to I have to do this or I have to follow this plan or I have to. It's like if I do, it's great, but also like if I don't, that's okay too. And also rest is good, and rest is just as important. So I think it's kind of having that balance, but I definitely do think it is possibly like having that structure helps me kind of have that control aspect.
For sure.
There.
For sure. And you touched on sleep there and rest. When you're training for an Ironman, what is your kind of like? Talk me through. You do days in life in your Instagrams, which are great. Talk me through your kind of training, but also your like sleep and how you regiment. Because sleep is recovery, right?
Yeah.
So you need to sleep. So talk me through, and that's a mistake that a lot of people make, by the way. Is that you? Yeah. So how do you kind of structure that, so to speak? So
I usually have 1 to 2 rest days a week.
Okay.
So it's either a Monday or a Friday, or sometimes both, depending on the week. And then, so I'll have my training sessions. I kind of just do them when I feel like it, when I feel strong enough throughout the day. Like some days I'll wake up and be like, okay, I'm going to do my training first thing because I feel really good. But then some days I wake up and I don't feel good. And I think maybe waiting until midday is a bit better once I've had some food and I've got some fuel in me. Or in the evening, sometimes I've got a bit more energy. So I kind of wait depending on the time to see, also depending on my work schedule and what I do. So when I can fit it in. So I do my training sessions when I feel like it. And then in between sessions, I rest. So I sit down most of the time, either on my laptop doing client work or, doing social media bits and bobs. But I make sure to sit down. So I don't really go for any extra walks, or I don't do anything out with my plan that's going to be putting too much strain on my body, because it's not worth it. And also I'm doing so much already that there's no need to be walking 20,000 steps. That's like unnecessary, so unnecessary. So as for sleep, I wish I had some better advice, because I'm a really bad sleeper. My coach, Doug, he always says that my sleep's really bad. So I need to actually work on that. I think I know it's good, but I'm really bad at doing it. Getting off your phone in the evenings is so important, but I'm not the best at it. And you do notice, if you do have a good solid sleep, how much that impacts your training and your mood and your hunger the next day. So yeah, I think it's making sure that you sleep at least 7 to 8 hours a day.
Do you track it? Like, I have a Garmin watch next door. I did a campaign with Garmin and they gave me a watch.
Wow, oh cool.
It's a super cool brand, right?
Yeah,
I love the Apple Watches. You have an Apple Watch, but they're so not for me, because they're an extension of your phone.
Yeah,
I don't like that, because I'm on, like, my job is on social media. I don't want to have more social media. So the Garmin was good because I could disconnect it from my phone and it was just fitness.
That's what mine is.
But then I found myself getting so invested in like, it was telling me things that I'd already know. Like I'd go out for a beer and then I'd have a shit night's sleep.
And your HRV's low.
Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, great.
I know, Garmin.
Really hungover fear. And oh, thanks. But is that how you track everything through your Garmin?
Yeah. So I wear my Garmin. I did at one point have a Whoop and a Garmin, but I thought that was a bit lame to have two. So I took my Whoop off and I prefer my Garmin. Yeah. So it tracks my sleep. I actually got 8 hours last night. So that's really good for me. But yeah, track that for my sleep and my HRV, which is heart rate variability. So I think that's about like stress on your body. Yeah. I'm not too sure. But it does tell you, and then you can kind of adjust like what you're doing for your day. So like I know if like my HRV is really low, I might feel really, really bad. So maybe changing my session around, or maybe like making sure that I'm doing just a bit less or chilling out a wee bit more. Yeah.
Is there a danger, and you said changing your session there, something that I've fallen into the habit, I'm a creature of habit, so I'll like do the same thing, and I'll get exactly the same amount of enjoyment out of it, I'll just keep doing it. But I have this thing in the gym where, so at the moment I'm trying to do 3 or 4 days weights, and then maybe 3 days cardio, go run, whatever. But I kind of do the same session in the gym every time when I do weights. Is that like, is that not good, or is it, it's still beneficial, but should you think about changing that?
Yeah, so if you're in the gym and you're doing the same stuff every week or every other day or whatever it is, you definitely want to make sure that you're seeing progress in that. So whether that's, increasing the intensity or doing a bit like increasing the weights. So like changing it so you've got some progress to be seen over the weeks. But I think it's important to change your routine maybe like every 6 to 8 weeks. And you'll probably only get the most benefit out of that, and then change it up after that to see more progress.
Is that just because your muscles kind of like just get used to it?
They get adapted, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So because I do at the moment in the gym, I'll do like a chest and tricep day, a back and shoulder day, and then a legs and maybe biceps. Yeah. Because I always want to do biceps, so I know that I need to do legs prior to biceps to get my legs done. But so that's like a 3-day split. But if I were to just continue to do the same weights, kind of training in terms of bench press or squats or whatever it is, your muscles have just kind of adapted.
They're just adapted, yeah, because it'll probably feel easier. Yeah. It's the same movement. So you want to use different areas of that muscle. Yeah. You want to use all those like little tiny muscles that you have in there by doing other exercises. But yeah, if you're doing the same weights for 6 weeks, you will have some benefit. Yeah. But there's only so much that you can get. So you'd rather like push that each week. So like for instance, for my training, I do very similar sessions every single week, but over time the intensity goes up a wee bit more. So every like week, my coach might put my watts up on my bike by like 5 or 10, which is like a tiny amount, but that will make a massive difference to my overall health, my overall strength.
Okay, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And when did you get a coach?
I got a coach back in... I actually had a coach for my marathon last year as well. A lovely girl called Imogen. I don't know if you've seen her. She just did the 3 Peaks. She like ran the 3 Peaks.
Oh, was she on the news?
Yeah, Imogen
I might have
Yeah, so she actually coached me last year. I was one of her clients. And she was a great running coach. Wow, she got me through my marathon, which was amazing. And she was so great. I recommend her to anybody. And then I started with my coach... Doug back in November last year, October, November, when I started my Ironman training last year, and he basically set me up on like swimming, running, biking. He's a very, very good biker, knows everything about the bike, and that was like the one thing I knew nothing about. So he set me up, and he does all my training for that, and it's helped massively. So it's helped.
So do you think it's almost like having a PT, right? Because they're kind of they're another set of eyes like on you, if that makes sense. And do you think that motivates you?
Oh yeah, knowing that he set my plan, if I don't do it, then I might not get to my goal. For sure, is like the biggest help. And just knowing that I'm doing the right things as well. I know nothing about Ironman training. I'm such a beginner that I wouldn't know how to structure a plan for all 3 disciplines, because it's such a difficult sport to plan for, like with running, that you can kind of I'm a running coach, so I kind of know how to structure running plans. But like when it comes to swimming and biking, I knew nothing. So just knowing that I'm doing the right things, and also knowing that I'm going to be able to get to my end goal and be able to achieve it is just like a peace of mind. Yeah. And also just takes hassle away because you've just got it there. You know what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there a specific, you said cycling there, so is like that what you find most difficult, or is it swimming? Because you've been a running coach, right? So you kind of completed it.
Yeah.
But
my running's really bad right now.
But cycling and swimming.
Yeah.
I remember Marcus telling me about the swimming. He was like, it was just absolute chaos. Like, through the water in the Ironman, it's just chaos.
It's the wildest thing.
Yeah.
I think most people when they come into triathlon kind of struggle with the swimming, especially in adults, a bit more because not everybody has a swimming background. I think I'm so lucky, and I've never been so thankful that I put all those hours into the pool when I was 11, because it's been like the biggest help, because jumping back into the pool is like second nature for me. So it was just like almost just like building back fitness as opposed to building technique, and swimming's so technique based and so tricky if you are an adult. And I do feel for anybody who is like a complete beginner in it, because it is so hard. So yeah, so glad that I had the swimming background, but the swim in the Ironman is in open water, which is very different than the pool.
Is it freezing? Is it cold?
I think I had so much adrenaline, I didn't really even feel it. But I know when I do go for open water swims, it's like that initial like 3 seconds, you're like, oh my gosh, I literally can't breathe. But yeah, people pull your ankles in the swim and like you get slapped in the face.
Oh yeah, because I suppose you're going into people's feet and all that kind of stuff. Oh my god!
And then you feel people grabbing your ankles, and you just got to kick as fast as you can, to get them away.
Why do they grab your ankles?
I think because they're trying to
put forward.
Yeah, I think not pull forwards, but they're basically, is it drifting or not drafting? Drifting.
I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh. The drift. You know when you're behind somebody on a bike and it's like is it drafting?
Oh, when you're in their slipstream.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So basically
that makes
slipstream.
Okay.
So you can basically, his draft, I think.
Okay.
I'm going to say draft if it's drift. I
Stick to it, say it with confidence.
Draft. So when you can draft in the swim, so if you're behind somebody, basically you'll be pulled forwards with a bit of extra speed. So people kind of will grab your ankles because they'll might have not seen you there, or they'll be trying to draft. So and then obviously you've got people on the left and the right, you've got people everywhere. So when somebody's coming over, you can get slapped in the face quite a few times. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrid.
Yeah. But back to cycling and like swimming and cycling. Cycling's been the hardest, I would say, for me.
Why is that? Because I've been doing spinning recently, and my dad has been destroying me at it. It's really embarrassing because he's been doing this for years. So he's like me doing weights. Like I can do weights really comfortably. Yeah. But for some reason, the spinning, the watt bike is just really difficult.
Yeah, it's so hard.
And you do need to get used to it. So what is it you find difficult about it?
So I think now I'm comfortable on a bike. It's fine. But to begin with, I haven't ridden a bike since I was about 8, I want to say. So using cleats to basically, they're shoes that clip you in. So you basically can't like move your feet when you're on the bike.
I didn't know they even existed.
Yeah, so that you can clip them in. So when you're pedaling, you basically just get a bit, I think it's so you can get a bit more power. Learning to use them is really hard. Yeah. Really hard because I fell so many times. I must have fallen about 10 times to figure out how to use them. And I think just confidence on the roads as well. It's quite a scary thing and it's quite daunting being out on the roads and turning corners is something I'm really, really bad at. I had some dodgy turns during my Bolton Ironman. But yeah, using the bike and being comfortable and confident on the bike is probably the hardest thing. I'd say I'm quite strong-ish on it, but it's more the confidence thing.
See like the resistance in the watt bike, you can go up to 100, but you start, what resistance are you on?
So you don't really have a resistance on a bike. You have your gears. Yeah. So it's like so different than a watt bike or a spin bike.
Okay.
And that was something that I also learned because I've been a spin instructor for 5 years. Yeah. So going from a spin bike into, or like a spin class where you think you're really strong, onto like a road bike is very different. So your gears are controlled on your handlebars, and that basically helps you go up hills and push you down hills and your gears. And
when you're doing spinning, do you still have the setting of like how strong it is, if that makes sense, or how much the resistance is?
Yes, you'll have your resistance turned, but you're obviously not going up and down hills, so it's a bit different,
because it's like one solid instead of up and down.
And then So I have a turbo machine, which basically attaches my bike at home, and I have a setup called Swift. Yeah. So I can see like where I'm at, or like see other cyclists, and that's done through power output. So your watts. So that's kind of how you can see how hard you're pushing, is through your power as opposed to like your resistance.
Got you. And when you were doing the spinning though, did you have that resistance?
Yeah.
What did you have it at?
Oh, it would depend on like the song and what we were doing. So like if we were like climbing a hill, it would be up at like, well, our ones at the studio that I used to work at went up to like 24. So it would be like, go up to, I don't know, 20, and let's go for a climb. Yeah. Okay. Or like super low sprint, or depending, or like jumps to the rhythm. Yeah. It was very rhythmic. As opposed to. And
I'm guessing this is again what Marcus said, but when you're actually on the bike, is that when you take your gels? Your gels are like, they're pretty much just like energy capsules, right?
Yeah, like nutrition. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that when you take them, when you like, have you got a set strategy for the Ironman in terms of when you need to eat? Well, not eat, but suck up a fruit kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. So so basically gels are just carbs. So it's pretty much just sugar. So it's just like carbs that get really quickly absorbed into your body. So you take one usually after the swim, before your swim. And then on the bike, it's really important to get as much nutrition in as possible, because it's easiest to, because you're sat down and obviously you're moving your legs, but you've got the ability to use your hands. So it's just super easy to get it down you on the bike.
Yeah.
So I aim for anywhere between 70 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. So kind of knowing that within your gels, and then also having bottles of liquid carbs as well. So
what is that? Is that just that's just like thick liquid?
Kind of. So you have your bottle of just like water or electrolytes, and then you can add carbs into it. So it's just kind of like a powder that's just carbs.
Like protein powder almost.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But for carbs. Okay. That just gets so easily digested into your body, and then you honestly feel such a difference.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Like, is it like instant? Because my friend Finley, he actually lives next door. He did it a marathon ages ago, and he said he didn't eat right, and the previous day, and he said he didn't complete that. He's completed a couple since then, but he didn't complete that one prior because he didn't eat very much.
Yeah. It can be a make or break. Your nutrition, they say in triathlon, your nutrition is your fourth discipline. So it's hard to nail, and it can happen to like top athletes. You see it happen, and they can't stomach gels, and then they have to drop out and they DNF. So it's so important. You don't realize until you kind of come into like the marathon or like the endurance scene, because you kind of don't really think about it in everyday life as much. But yeah, I remember in my marathon last year, I messed up my nutrition so bad, so bad. And it was awful. I think at one point I freaked out. I remember I got to about 32 kilometers. I must have hit the wall, and I got confused where all my gels were in my bag. And I remember just grabbing 3 high 5 energy gels, which I know don't work for my stomach, just eating them all at once, which is the stupidest thing. I still managed to be okay, but after the marathon, I was so ill. Yeah. So ill. It was so bad. And like some gels can upset your stomach, and like just when you're eating and you're running, especially when you're running, because like you're bouncing up and down basically. Yeah. So,
but is it all the blood rushes away from your stomach, right? Am I right in saying that?
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I think when you run, especially long distances, at least this is what Andy has said, one of my best pals, so I'm going to blame him for this. But I'm sure this is right. Your blood is drawn away from your organs essentially because it's vasodilation, like to the max.
Right.
Because
okay.
you're trying to like sweat. You're trying to lose body temperature.
Body heat. Yeah.
So all the blood goes away, and as a result, your stomach is not great.
Oh, it's a horrible feeling. It is horrible. And in my half Ironman, it was horrible as well.
Yeah.
And just like when you're running on pure sugar, like the last thing that you want, or like when you've only eaten gels for 6 hours, last thing that you want is another blooming gel. It's honestly, I remember just holding 2 gels running during my half Ironman, and just like slowly trying to bite a Morton gel, and it tasted disgusting. It's so gross. But
how long did it take you to complete the half Ironman?
So I did it in 6 hours and 1 minute, I think. I was hoping for under 6, but with the whole shoe incident, I'm kind of like pretty much did it. But to be fair, I'm not really hoping for any times this year. But it was about 6 hours for me. Yeah.
Got you. And how long does a marathon take on average? Is that the same? Is that like 6 or 7 hours?
No. So, and I don't know what the average time for a marathon is, I want to say it's maybe like 4.5 hours. So a wee bit under the 6. So it can be, depends on person to person, but yeah.
Got you, because I think my pal was doing a marathon in, where was it we were talking about earlier, Annabelle? Was it Copenhagen?
Oh, that one's soon, is it?
Oh, I think it's just been. The
It's
one
just
that
been.
they...
Oh.
Was it in Denmark? I can't remember. There was a marathon in Denmark like 2 months ago. I think maybe it was a bit longer than that. But he said that it was like 29 degrees, roasting, and he said that he's never run in that temperature. He finished it.
That's what I'm worried about in Copenhagen.
Yeah, terrible. Like, do you have a set? Obviously, in Scotland, you're actually quite lucky, because I quite like running in the rain and running.
Yeah, it's nice.
Cools you down. Have you ever ran in like that heat?
Well, no.
Yeah.
In Bali, when I went to Bali last year, it was hot, and you just realise that you just can't run at the paces that you are maybe used to. I've never really experienced it. I did the Edinburgh Marathon last year, and it was quite hot that day, and I noticed a difference. And I remember thinking, gosh, like this is hard, like it's getting really hot midday. You do notice just like how fatigued you get so easily, and how your heart rate just spikes so much. Like your heart rate isn't where it maybe usually is. I think that's important to take into training as well. Like if it is hotter one day, don't beat yourself up if you can't run the paces that you're usually running, or if you can't do what you're usually doing because your body's not used to it. That's why a lot of athletes who maybe have races abroad will go abroad to train, or do training camp abroad, or do heat training to get their body adjusted to it.
What do you think's been on the subject of kind of hot, horrible weather for running? What has been the most like the toughest moment so far in terms of like your training regime, or I suppose the Ironman kind of that kind of thing maybe sucked a little bit, but do you think that was like the toughest moment so far that's happened?
As in training wise?
Yeah, training or competition. Like what's been the toughest moment in the career so far?
I would say, I'd actually say during my marathon. I think I found my marathon a lot harder than the half Ironman that I've done so far. Those are the only 2 races that I've done. So I'm very, very new to like the whole scene. But I would say during my marathon, I remember thinking like, gosh, like this is really hard, especially when you're pushing for time. And I think because an Ironman is so long, that when it's your first time, like for me, I'm not really, I guess, racing it this year. I'm trying to complete it. And I think there's a difference between racing and completing. And for me, I definitely raced my marathon last year, and I got a time that I was so proud of, especially for my first one. But I remember thinking, gosh, like I've never been in so much pain. Like I've never been in so much pain. And I remember I had 1 kilometer to go to the end, and I just remember thinking like, I don't think I can. Like this feels like a mile away. Like this feels like miles and miles and miles away. But I remember that being probably like the hardest and like the toughest thing to do. And I think also being like your first race, it is just like,
you don't know what to expect.
You don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think there's just it means a lot more to you as well. So I think in that way it kind of makes it a bit harder. So yeah, I'd say that.
Do you have do you drink?
I do and I don't.
Weird relationship with alcohol?
A wee bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not drank since December last year. I've not had one drink, which is unusual for me because I do like a drink and I do like a party and I do enjoy it. But I think now maybe because I've really been enjoying sport so much, I just don't really see a benefit to it.
Yeah.
And I also hate hangovers. I
horrible.
Honestly, the worst thing ever. And I'm such a baby with them. So I think just realizing like there's more to it, to life than drinking, to be honest.
Yeah.
Also during my marathon prep last year, and I think this is probably what influenced me not drinking this year, was during my marathon last year, I remember I would have a long Sunday run coming up, and a lot of friends would go out on the Saturday, and I went to these parties to like show face, but I actually enjoyed not drinking more than actually drinking. So I realized actually not having a drink and kind of not using that as a crutch to kind of get me through socially, that actually it was even more enjoyable. Or I went to my friend Lauren, my best friend Lauren's party sounds so old saying that, birthday thing. We went out for her birthday and she was drinking, everybody was drinking, and I didn't because I had training the next day. And it was honestly one of the best nights ever. I had the most fun. I was up dancing. I had the best time. And I did think just realizing that you don't need it, then you kind of think, well, why should I? Because I can have a better time by not drinking.
Yeah.
So like what's the need? But I definitely think I will have a drink after I finish my Ironman.
You deserve it.
A celebratory one. I'm not against drinking. I think I've just kind of come to realize, for me, maybe it's not needed.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not against it in any way. And I think it can add to people's lives as well. And I think it's a good thing for some, but also it can be like, you can just have as good fun, not.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think people struggle with it, especially within the UK. Like when I think, I'm 26 now. So when I think back to like school, we started drinking, 15?
So young.
So young.
So young.
So young. So people don't know how to socialize without it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then they get anxious because they don't have it.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like, there is a clarity that comes over you when you don't, like you feel you just don't need to drink anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm quite a socially kind of like anxious person anyway. But I think that's just, it's not even anxiety. It's just my personality. I'm a bit socially awkward. So like, it just wasn't my scene. So you'd end up like numbing it with alcohol.
Just to get you through.
Yeah. And so many people that you see, like so many of my friends that will drink just, it seems to me, to kind of like numb the social situation.
And just to get drunk, essentially. Yeah. I think that's very prevalent, especially in our culture, so much. In Scotland, it is quite bad. And I definitely did that. Like I would drink, especially like, I think when you say get to an event and everybody's having a drink and they're getting a bit tipsy and there is that kind of awkward part where you feel, oh my gosh, everybody's getting more confident and I'm maybe coming into myself a bit more. And then you kind of panic. So then you reach for that drink because you're like, okay, I just need to be a bit more confident. And that was the thing for me. It was always like the confidence or like, or like even, I guess, conforming to social standards because it's what you've done. But then I feel like it also gets past that point of once people have had enough drinks, they don't even realize that you're not drinking.
Yeah.
So
they're
then
so drunk they don't realize.
They think you're drunk. So then you're kind of high off of their energy. So it's almost like getting past that hard initial point. But once you do get past that, it's like, oh, you don't need it. You really don't. But yeah, it is like a social crutch. And I definitely used it for that. But I also feel like I've become more confident without it because I'm able to, have a laugh with people without alcohol or know that I'm going into an event and I can hold myself well without alcohol or without holding a drink. And I can actually be strong enough to say, no, actually, I'm not drinking tonight. And I think there's so much power in saying no. And I think in our culture as well, people have such an issue when you're not drinking.
Yeah,
they're like,
really
oh, come on, just have a drink.
Yeah.
Or like, they get angry because you're not. But actually, like, what is it to them, really? So have power and say no, I think is a really important thing.
And we were talking prior about the kind of the travel that you did as a kid. I mean, I know you were quite young at that point, but is there a difference in cultures? Like from when I traveled, there's definitely a different culture in terms of alcohol, and you can spot the Brits out of any...
And the Scots.
Yeah, the Brits and the Scots and the Irish to an extent.
Yeah.
Like, you can... any hostel you go to, you spot them instantly because they're fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
But is there any difference in terms of cultures? I know that you said you've been to Australia and you wanted to move there. Is there a difference in terms of like that culture that makes you want to move there? Like, because I know that they're very health-centric in Australia. Like, they're... 5 a.m. they're up running on the beach because they don't want to have the midday sun because they're scared of skin cancer. Everyone's putting on sun cream. They're like, smoking's not cool. Like they're very health centric. Is that part of the draw?
I think so. I definitely would say so. And I think I'd say in Australia they are very, very healthy and they get up so early and there is such big difference in cultures. And I think from growing up, like when I remember we moved back to Scotland when I was about 16 and I remember everybody was already drinking at that point and I'd like not really drank. And like, I remember thinking like, what the hell? Like people are drinking? Like, what? Like, whereas my school, when we were living in the States, I went to an English school or a British like international school and nobody really drank there. Like it wasn't the thing. And I think it's introduced so young here in comparison. But I think that's definitely why I have a draw to go over there or to move abroad, essentially. I think it's just a healthier lifestyle. Also, the sun makes
the sun's nice, isn't it?
A lot happier, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Do you get like, see in winter, I get like, it's not seasonal depression, it's definitely not that, but I just get like, you just feel like, see when the sun is out.
Bad,
yeah, like see when the sun is out and like it's shining, even if you're inside in the office, you just like, there's an aura of like positivity around people
when the sun comes out.
Yeah, and I feel like although Australia does have a lot of cons with the skin cancer rates, the ozone layer being a bit fried, and everything's, and they kind of are scared of the sun, even the prospect of the sun just being out makes people so much happier.
So much happier. Like, this summer's been terrible. I feel like it's all anybody's spoken about is how bad the summer's been. But you do notice it. Like, for instance, even like in my training, like yesterday, I found it such a breeze. I was lacking in sleep, but I found it even so such a breeze to go and train because it was sunny. So I could go outside, I could go and ride my bike and the sun was shining and I wasn't being blown away by wind or pounded by rain. And I think just even like getting yourself out of the house, it can make you so much easier. Yeah. Especially if you do struggle mentally, it definitely does help. Yeah.
It's tiny things, I think, like even going for a walk. I think we're kind of biologically engineered to be within nature.
Yeah.
Like, I think
for sure.
Yeah. So like you're like sitting in this room and editing up there for like 8 hours on end is just not natural.
Stir crazy.
Yeah. I go genuinely mental.
Yeah.
So whenever I edit, especially when I have editor studio days, I try and get like an hour or two outside. I try and go to the gym. I work weird hours so I can kind of like split it.
Yeah.
I suppose there's a common thread that I've kind of like woven through your story, if you want to. That was very articulate, wasn't it? And it's kind of like mental resilience to things. Like, I feel like you kind of have a mental strength towards certain things that you're dedicated towards. What do you think is a tip that you could give someone to build that mental strength in terms of like marathon running is a perfect example. You need huge mental resilience to do a marathon.
Yeah.
A half Ironman is bonkers, not to mention a full Ironman, which is in how many?
Just over 2 weeks.
Shit. Shit. So that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
So what would be your tips to kind of like build people's mental resilience?
I think it's tricky because I feel like it's something that I've just always had. And I feel like sometimes, like, I guess that voice that tells you, oh, don't do that today, I can just like shove it away so easily. It's hard to like, I guess, teach somebody that. But I think it comes back to that quote, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if you have a goal that you want to get to, if you don't change something about what you're doing now, then you're going to be stuck there forever. So I think it's like, again, back to those small steps each day, whether that's like, you know, even if you do your training session and it doesn't go well and you stop halfway, you know, that's something small and that's better than nothing.
Yep.
And I think that can push you to get closer to your goals, as opposed to being very much like, oh, I need to do this to a T. And if I don't do it to a T, then it's all ruined.
Yeah.
Because like, that's not true. So I think, telling yourself that if nothing changes, and that you're always stronger than you think. Because I feel like people underestimate their strength and they underestimate their dedication. And a lot of people say to me like, oh, I would just never have your willpower, or I would just never have your dedication. But it's not that you'll never, it's just maybe you don't know that you can yet. So I think having belief in yourself and having that inner self-belief and inner drive is what will get you to do hard things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely inspiring, Kirsty. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram called Kirsty Fits, and TikTok is the same, I think. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. Instagram is my thing at the minute. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me.